Jaden Rashada, former five-star quarterback, has transferred to his fifth school in less than 3 years here. He's transferred to Brennan Marion, the pioneer behind the go-go offense, in Sac State. He transfers over from Georgia, had a stint at Arizona State as well, committed to Miami, flipped to Florida, still has an ongoing lawsuit against the University of Florida and Billy Napier. But Pete here, Jaden Rashada commits to Brennan Marion in Sac State. What are your thoughts on this commitment here? Go ahead.
Kind of the wrong time to do this. I mean, like, if you're going to make a splash, you don't do it when Shaq's about to take over your college basketball program. You kind of sucked up all the oxygen out of that room. Look, when it comes to these quarterbacks, I mean, first of all, the transfer portal for college is kind of tough because, if one guy, unless it's a quarterback, one guy's not necessarily going to change everything. Most of the time, it's like a final piece of the puzzle. It's where if you are a big monster program and you need a left guard, you go pick and choose from the left guard, from the left guards. If you need a wide receiver, look at Ohio State last year, who loaded up on guys who were transfers, who stepped up their offensive line. Caleb Downs might be the best player in college football last season, but he's a safety, so he doesn't get enough respect for that. And so it's really for those programs to find that final guy. And we saw we just came off this NFL draft where, usually over the last, million years, the Big Ten and SEC accounted for 40 to 45-ish% of the draft. This year was around 75. It was because all the transfers are moving up. Because if, you go to Central Michigan and you're good, Michigan will find you and get you, So the transfer portal is weird. It's a long-winded way of kind of getting to Rashada, where the quarterbacks are obviously the guys who can make the biggest impact. But if you're a quarterback, you only use one. So if you're an offensive lineman or you're a corner, you can go to some other school and you'll find your way in the rotation and be fine. But if you're a quarterback, you want that starting gig. And if you're not the starter, the vultures will come in and get you. The problem with that, though, is not all these guys are great. So you have five-star guys all across the board who are used to being treated and, thought of as the next big thing. And then all of a sudden they're just not. And it's hard. It's hard to find these guys who are going to kick in and be these, the quarterbacks. And so you've got guys like Malachi Nelson, who's going to UTEP. You've got Nick Evers, who I don't even know where he is now. But these, look at Ohio State. Look at Alabama. They're loaded with five-star quarterbacks who are never going to start and go on to somewhere else. So a guy like Rashada, well, okay, Sacramento State, they're going to move up to the FCS world in the next year or so. Gives him a shot to show what he can do. And if he's great and he puts up big numbers, the NFL scouts will find him.
Definitely. And you mentioned him kind of going to a lower level at Sac State. And we're going to talk about Rashada's lawsuit in a second. But let me ask you, he goes to a guy in Brennan Marion, pioneer behind the go-go offense, obviously had some success over at UNLV. Brennan Marion is also a JUCO product as well. My boss is the Last Chance U coach, Coach Jason Brown. So we highlight all junior college products on this show. But let me ask you about Brennan Marion, pioneer behind the go-go offense, taking over Sac State. Obviously, you just mentioned they filed a petition with the NCAA to move up from FCS to FBS. Currently, they play in the Big Sky Conference in the FCS against teams like Eastern Washington, Montana State, and et cetera. What are your thoughts on Brennan Marion taking over the Sac State program? Right now, they have the number one transfer portal in the FCS, as far as I know, and I know Brennan Marion's going to really level out the program. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, that's what you do. I mean, if you are I don't want to say lower level program, but if you're a little bit of an outlier, if you're not Ohio State, if you're not USC, if you're a Sac State or someone like that, you find the guys who can put together the fun offenses that are going to crank up lots of numbers, because what do guys want to play in? They want to play. How do you get a shot? You get a guy who say, hey, look, why are you coming to Sacramento State when you've seen, Florida and Arizona State and these other top schools? Well, you come here, you're going to throw for a bajillion yards if it works out. It doesn't always work.
Right.
Some of these guys think like, oh, I'm going to just walk into this situation and be the starter and everything. And it doesn't always happen like that. But we're just coming off, who's the dream tail? We're just coming off of this. Cam Ward goes from being a one-star recruit, goes to Incarnate Word, throws for a gajillion yards, goes to Washington State, keeps that going right offense, clicks for him, and shows what he can do. Goes to Miami, then he becomes the number one overall pick in the draft. So that's the dream for these guys. But to get on that radar, you got to put up the big giant numbers. So if you are someone running something like Sacramento State, it doesn't really help to necessarily have a great defense and win games 10-7 because you want to make a splash and you do that with offense.
Definitely. And we haven't seen too much of Rashada in college football. Ironically, as much as we talk about Jaden Rashada, we haven't actually seen too much of Jaden Rashada in college football since his days at Arizona State. Like I mentioned earlier, Jaden Rashada currently has an open lawsuit against the University of Florida and Billy Napier over alleged NIL funds that apparently were not paid out to him, over $14 million reportedly. And Pete, I wanted to ask you about the state of NIL in college football. I think it's an ongoing issue that we continue to discuss. It's causing more and more issues as we go on. I think we all want the players to get paid here, but the system I think is flawed for sure here as Jaden Rashada's lawsuit against Florida here continues. What are your thoughts on NIL in college football? Are there any tweaks that you would make to the system that would improve it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. The problem is you have to, in theory, these guys are supposed to go to college and learn. So we're treating this like they're pros, and this is a minor league, professional system. When in reality, everyone's got to keep in mind it is all based on going to school. And so, why did the transfer portal end now? Well, if you have a kid, kids anywhere, May 1st is the deadline for regular students. This is commitment day, where you got to commit or go somewhere else. That's when real colleges and real students close everything up. So why is this transfer portal now? It's not for football. It's because they got to know it for a student aspect of this. Like, not everybody can get into UCLA now. Not everybody can just transfer into, Notre Dame or Duke or places like this because they have to actually, again, theoretically, go to school. So the problem with this transfer portal thing is there's just no way to properly regulate it because every time you try to do it, you can't tell any normal kid who wants to transfer from one school to another to go to a different, psych program or something. They just do it. And so it's the same thing for college football players. There's supposedly students who might want to go and say, oh, I like this history department better, which, we know that's not right. But that's, in theory, how this is supposed to work. NIL, when they first did this, they got it right because, look, if some goofy booster wants to give you a tractor or something like this or give you a bag of cash, okay, right. Knock it out, go for it. If you want to get an ad deal, through Disney or Coca-Cola or whatever, okay, great. Where this runs into a problem, though, is when all of a sudden schools are saying, hey, we are going to pay, you have a $10 million thing, $20 million or more to pay for college football players, where English departments are like, hey, wait a minute here, you're cutting us for this and you're getting linebackers. It's a rough way to do it. So what you're talking about specifically here when it comes to, players and, like Nico's situation and Matthew Sluka last year and everything is that they don't have necessarily agents. They're not savvy. There's no laws here. There's no rules. They're going on just handshake deals. And they can't collectively bargain. There's no players union. And so it's just a real giant hot mess that you can't really contain without recognizing these guys as students first and players second. And obviously nobody does that in the real world.
Yeah, no one does that. I think we look at it as what it is, professional football. Essentially, at this point, it's pay for play. I think NIL was designed in the way you mentioned, to where a car dealership or somebody that wants to, support you does that. But now I think it's turned into a different product, so to speak. And professional football is the way I look at it, Pete.
Well, and to your point, real quick, is not to cut you off, but to your direct point is that look at the NFL draft that just happened. Everyone thinks they're going to be a pro football player. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm just going to go to the NFL. We know that the 276 guys drafted in the NFL right now, 230 of them are probably not going to work, or actually less than that. Like 200 of them are going to be cut, be out, not make any money, and all of a sudden they're going to be 26 years old and have to go, they're all going to try to do what you're doing and, get in the media, or do a podcast, or, try to find a job and realize, uh-oh. So now with NIL, it's hard to blame the players and be like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make money at the next level. So why not cash out now? Because this is when I might have my only shot to do this.
Definitely. And I don't put the players at fault at all, especially with the system is so, people call it Wild Wild West. It's because it's unregulated. Like there's no regulation. The NCAA is powerless, so to speak, when it comes to regulating this, and we see them continue to become powerless here. But